This is massive news today. We've already seen them announce that with the upcoming time for them to test the servers, the stress test going into the expansion, that the stress test is going to be actually done only with Mana Data Center, which is not that shocking, right? That they are only going to be request the assistance of the Mana Data Center. So August 27th, they're going to test server stability going to the expansion. They are not going to be performing it on North American and European data centers because they've already obtained sufficient data because we are already stressing these servers. As we build towards the anniversary event, the Rising, getting a chance to get ourselves a cool Paracel and everything, go experience that holiday event. It is time to talk about how many people really are logging on these North American and EU data centers and what the plan is. We've just gotten a letter from Naoki Yoshida, the producer and director of Final Fantasy XIV, Yoshi-P himself. Let's dive in. Greetings, Final Fantasy XIV players. This is your producer and director, Naoki Yoshida. I'd like to say a huge thank you for the support from our players around the world, including those of you who recently started your adventures in Final Fantasy XIV. On the other hand, the number of simultaneous logins has continued to hit the upper limit, especially in the case of North American and European data centers and worlds. And as such, I'd like to provide an update regarding the current situation and the need to designate certain worlds as congested. During the patch 5.58 hotfix maintenance scheduled for August 24th, we will be changing the operating system settings for the server configuration of the European data centers, and the login cap will be increased once we have confirmed stability post-maintenance. Furthermore, in late September, we are also planning to replace some of our equipment with high-performance machines to further increase the cap. We've observed considerable levels of congestion on the European data centers over the past few weeks, especially during weekends. Though login queues have been quite long, please rest assured that they are working properly. We apologize for the inconvenience, but we ask that you continue to wait your turn to log in should you encounter a queue. Keep in mind that just because something's not working the way you hoped does not mean it's not working as intended. And so if you have too many people and your choices are for it to crash or let them in a safe and orderly fashion that keeps the server up for everybody that's in and slowly kind of lets people in the order that they got in the queue, that's working as intended. It's just because there's so many people here that it's long regardless. Classifying all Aether data center worlds as congested. This is where we play on Aether. As of patch 5.58 hotfix maintenance, all worlds on the Aether data center have been classified as congested. Despite expanding the maximum capacity as much as possible and closely monitoring the situation, the number of logins for each world have constantly remained at full capacity, which led us taking this course of action. This means players will be unable to create new characters on any world on the Aether data center until this classification is lifted. We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience this will cause for those of you who were looking forward to embarking on adventures with friends. Were the number of characters to increase any further, it could result in login queues taking up to several hours, which is why we need to take this approach. In the meantime, we kindly request that you consider creating a character on a world within the Primal or Crystal data centers, though we're aware they are currently quite congested as well. Once again, we sincerely apologize for the inconvenience this will cause our players on North American data centers. Keep in mind that a substantial number of so the legacy servers are split, were originally split across Aether and Primal. Crystal did not exist. Crystal was spun up going into Shadowbringers at the end of Stormblood to expand the number of servers that we had by adding a third data center, and there was some migration and stuff going on during that time. While we do all of that, Aether's gotten a big influx of players. I play on Sargatanas, which is a legacy server, meaning it existed in 1.0 and is now here under a new name. And so we have a lot of very old veteran players that have been, like, those characters have been here since the beginning. That means by its very nature that our server is very, very rarely empty. But it has been so congested lately that I have had people tell me they have had the opportunity to create their character with the preferred server status being on Sargatanas because the other servers are so congested that it's literally just shoving people places. And so they're getting a road to 70 buff on congested servers. And so it is saying congested is the best course of action. There is not servers that are not being used. Of course, there's the influx of anybody in a large community, Discord, Reddit, or surrounding a content creator, and the number of those that are based on Aether, but there are plenty of those on Primal and Crystal as well. People would like to note that Asmongold and Rich play on there, but I don't know that it's only that, because you also have, Mr. Happy, Llama Todd's main, like there's a number of creators on Aether. So I don't think it's as simple as just one person, but that, if you were to limit your list to one person, of course, Asmongold would be in the running for being that person. It's likely him if you're going to limit it to one person, but I don't think it is. To congest all these servers, you're talking about mass congestion, not 50 or 200,000 people watching him, many of which already had a character or continuing not to play. You're talking about a number much, much larger than that. So just before anybody goes and starts either blaming or claiming that any one community is single-handedly responsible for this, the good or the bad side of that, I don't think it's that simple. Addition of new worlds and other large-scale solutions for each data center. To address the congestion situation, our infrastructure and development teams are working closely to plan large-scale solutions, such as expanding our data centers or adding new worlds. As previously mentioned, however, there is an ongoing global shortage and increased demand for semiconductors, and quite frankly, we're still struggling to source the required equipment. Additionally, the recent resurgence of COVID-19 cases in Japan has raised major concerns regarding our ability to travel overseas for on-site implementations. These setbacks have made it difficult for us to cut down on the time requirement for implementation. For anybody that works in and around the industry that may have worked in a company that allows for more digital things, I will say that Square Enix is an incredibly private company. So even if you have done implementations like this relatively remotely, Square Enix doesn't, they're incredibly private. They're incredibly private with their data. Going into COVID, they did not have the ability for even their employees to VPN into their stuff. So it does not shock me that they would prefer on-site implementation, in addition to the fact that on-site implementation just removes a lot of variables, especially when you think about a language barrier or anything like that. It removes a lot of variables for them to be able to have their staff kind of handle things and be sure that it's done to their standards and their quality, and that if something goes wrong, that it was something that went wrong in-house, and so they have that control to fix that. These setbacks have made it difficult for us to cut down on the time required for implementation. Considering the current situation, we will likely require more time in implementing our large-scale solutions. The circumstances surrounding our infrastructure are far from ideal, but I promise that we will continue to persevere in implementing any solutions that we can. Thank you for understanding and continued support. I think that, as we start to see them allowing people, if they do open a new data center, you can trust that there's going to be free transfers over there. They're going to be encouraging people to go that direction. To kind of let off steam. Right now, it just seems like everything is slammed, and they're just saying this building is the most on fire. So I don't know that there's really anything that they can do that's going to truly fix this, but they are doing what they can to make this a better situation given where we're at, right? Besides just making content that less people want to play, there's nothing they can do besides make the best of the hardware they have. At this point, the idea to spin up new hardware and something would have had to have been in place long before all this, and we've all been stuck inside for a long time before this, so they would have had to know this 2 years ago. And I just don't know that they could have known that, and if they did know that, I don't know that they could have justified, spending a publicly traded company's money on speculation that Endwalker was going to be incredibly anticipated. So it has everything to do with how good the content in here is, how much excitement there is within the community, how poorly World of Warcraft is performing. across the board, Final Fantasy is just growing in every metric, including just a competitor just handing off growth. It's a crazy time for 14. It does not shock me. It is a bummer that they're having to lock down an entire data center. But there was already weird stuff happening. When people were telling me they were getting preferred server status for making a character on Sargatanas, that was already weird. I've only heard it from one person, but the fact that it could ever happen, even as a fringe case, is weird. So it already tells me that the servers are very much just like, I don't even freaking know. It's just slamming things out the door. It does mean that this is a great time to be somebody that wants to log in and be around a lot of people. So it means that systems like Frontlines and Duty Finder, if you're willing to play across the roles, this is a sign that your wait times are going to be at the absolute minimum. There is the maximum number of people available. So, the positive here is that you are part of an enormous, enormous community, and that Aether has the theoretical maximum number of people able to be played with. The downside is that should you invite anybody else to come play with you, they are going to have to make a character on another data center, and cross data center play. While we know that it's coming, we have not been given a timetable that we can expect for that to roll out. So I'm not sure that this is anything other than an update. I don't see this as objectively bad news, because I think there's a lot of good in here. They are aware of it. They're doing the things that they can to fix it. They have major upcoming changes. They have short-term changes keeping us able to log in. And this is a sign of good things for the game as a whole. It's not, hey, we mismanaged our hardware. It's, hey, we did not anticipate how many people would enjoy our game. That's a good thing. And then, of course, they can see the bad side of this. So I think this is just keeping us apprised. I don't know that there's anything in here that tells us anything as new information. We all probably have felt the way this is. Primal and Crystal are going to feel that if they've had issues getting in, or if they've had issues creating characters, that's only going to get worse now that you've removed any players that want to create a character on Aether. So it's just been a crazy time to play 14, and it just tells us that they're doing everything they can to give us a smooth expansion launch. I hope we have a smooth expansion launch. We have had bad expansion launches in the past. Stormblood was a disaster. So we are aware of, patch and expansion issues. We've had, hot fixes and things like this in the past. So this, in my mind, has been handled incredibly well, with the servers not really having to go offline for huge amounts of time suddenly with no warning. This is, as far as I can tell, this is just keeping us apprised of the fact that they are doing their jobs and they're doing them well, and that we should be happy about that. Kinda.